Zack Snyder's Justice League continues to explore Superman as a Jesus figure and Batman's newfound faith. We're here to uncover what you missed in the movie. We're going to talk a little bit about the Snyder Cut and Dawn of Justice. So, the Snyder Cut actually opens with Superman's death, and there's something hidden here that most people don't notice. Guys, do you remember anything weird happening during Jesus' death that may actually have inspired this scene in the movie?
Do I remember something about Jesus' death?
Yeah, there's something really kind of bizarre in the story about when Jesus died, something happened.
Lightning struck. Am I right?
Well,
Lightning,
I don't know about that. There was an earthquake.
Earthquake.
I didn't know that.
Neither did
Okay. So this is one of those things I didn't remember as a kid, and then I read it again. I was like, wait, that's in the story? Yeah, it says, like, Jesus gave a loud cry, the temple veil tore, there's an earthquake, there's an eclipse, it's or something. The sky is black. Then it says a bunch of people raised from the dead. So when I hear Superman's voice crying out, I already know Zack Snyder has said that Superman is a Jesus figure. That's kind of how he's exploring this character. So when his voice is ringing out across the earth and universe, and it's waking these mother boxes, I'm thinking about that moment when Jesus died and he cried out right before he died and all that weird stuff happened.
I don't remember that. Growing up in the story, I don't remember that. And
I know, I was like, are there
Passion
zombies around? Like,
movie, or
what happened to them? Did they go back to sleep? So I don't know for sure, but I think it's awfully interesting. And I liked how the Snyder Cut opened like this, much more so than the Dawn of Justice, the theatrical cut. Because from what I remember, Batman starts interrogating one of the parademons, and it's just far more interesting to see Superman die and his death like activates something. I thought it created a good mystery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand what Joss Whedon was doing with Dawn of Justice. The story was kind of there-ish. I know a lot of people dump on him for it, and it was not a great movie. I will admit that. It wasn't even a really good movie. It was fine. But the problem was he came from MCU, and MCU is really heavy on the jokes, and it works for them most of the time. I think they relied on it too much moving forward, but still. So he came from that world into the DCU, which was still fairly dark. All you had was Superman and Batman v Superman. Those movies had a few jokes here and there, but it wasn't MCU type funny, So when Joss came in and changed things up, I think that's what messed everything up. So, they took the first Superman and then Batman v Superman telling kind of the Jesus story, and Zack Snyder had a perfect finish for it. Joss Whedon kind of took it a different direction.
I watched half of Dawn of Justice before I started the Zack Snyder cut, just to be familiar with the differences. Because it had been a while. And my biggest complaint about the theatrical version was they didn't give enough backstory to the heroes. You saw what you were getting was from like closed caption television. Barry was caught being really quick on a convenience store camera, and Aquaman swam up to a camera and swam away, and that's all you knew about him. Because in the MCU, each character got like their own movie, so you knew who they were, and in this one they really didn't do that. So that's what I really like about the Snyder Cut, is that it was almost like each character got a good half hour of telling their story.
Introduction.
Right. I mean, we know who Cyborg is and how he became Cyborg. I mean, they don't really explain that in the original one. You just know that something happened and his dad made him into a cyborg. But this shows that he was an athlete, and he lost his mom, and he has a really bad relationship with his dad, and it really fleshes that out. And it does the same thing for Barry and his dad, and it goes into more detail with that. And it was just so much more enjoyable because it was like watching 3 movies in one. So
And we learned that the Flash would rather eat hot dogs than get the girl.
He had time. He's hungry.
And that is important, getting at least somewhat of a backstory, because yeah, we know who the Flash is and we know who Cyborg and Aquaman is. Kind of Cyborg. I didn't grow up with Cyborg. Cyborg, I think, was late 80s before he really became prevalent in the Justice League, because I grew up with, and this isn't even the right picture, I couldn't find a good one of the original Justice League with the
Lantern was in that one.
Yeah, and the Wonder Twins were in it. They had the stupid dog, and that's what I grew up on. And the Legion of Doom was in some kind of creepy looking submarine in the swamps of Louisiana, apparently. So I didn't know much about Cyborg other than he was a robot, but you need to know those backstories because people tell them a little bit differently. In the Zack Snyder cut, they show the beginning of Barry, saving who I assume was, I think it's Iris. Is that his girlfriend's name? But, in this version, apparently she knows his secret because he saved her, and then he's just sitting there, and then everything. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, I caught you. Nothing weird about that. So obviously she knows something's going on with him. So we know that moving into the future, if the movie would have continued or this group would have continued.
Oh, yeah. I did not catch that was Iris.
I'm assuming it was. I mean, I think they showed her a couple times. He was kind of watching her.
He was definitely interested in, I mean, they had what you would call a meet cute, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They locked eyes. The tractor beams.
Right.
Do you guys wonder what all that debris floating above Superman's casket at the end of BVS was about? Because I couldn't understand how that connected in this movie. It's almost like they just scrapped it, because I was expecting that to have something to do with how Superman comes back from the dead, because I knew he was coming back. So I knew they were going to have this Jesus metaphor in the resurrection. But I still don't understand why there were bizarre physics on top of his casket, because that never comes back.
Yeah.
It's like they changed their minds about how they were going to bring Superman back. That's what it seems to be to me. So do you guys know why this movie is in 4:3 in the Snyder Cut? It's square instead of in widescreen. It was kind of weird to watch it like that, but do you know what the reasoning was behind that?
Enlighten me. I have no idea.
To give you more of a retro feel, kind of like when he watched the Justice League, you watch it in box instead of...
Yeah, or so you're more focused on what's going on in the center instead of looking off to the sides?
No, it was actually to make the heroes take up more space on the screen so that they looked like tall and like Greek gods. And if you make it look like a widescreen, well, then they don't look as huge. So that, yeah, they're supposed to look like these towering Greek god type characters, which I think kind of goes along with the spiritual themes here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As Batman goes around and rounds up this team, how are you feeling about these characters? Do you find them to be intriguing or lacking?
I like the Cyborg character. I really did like his story and watching him from the beginning all the way through the end. So, I mean, again, had they not had any type of backstory with him, I probably wouldn't have cared a whole lot more. But seeing him dealing with this new body that he has and learning how to use it, and, he has that little connection with his father towards the end. I thought that was a really good part of this movie. So,
yeah, I'll agree with you on that. The story was amazing. Now, again, this is my lack of knowledge, but didn't he seem a little OP to you? I mean, OP. It was like overpowered. Sorry, that's a gaming term. It was just like any and everything they needed. He was just like, there it is. Or I got a tool for that. Or basically he was Batman 2.0 without the money, and
I love that line. What's your superpower? I'm rich.
And that's basically what he is, I mean, he's very good. He's a great fighter and everything like that. But they're going up against the worst of the worst. And you've got a human, basically you got Chuck Norris, which, the baddest man on the planet, but still going to have some troubles with what they're fighting. So,
intergalactic enemies. Yes.
I didn't know much about him either. Actually, what I knew about Cyborg prior to this movie was what I learned from watching Teen Titans Go with my kids. And he, on that, can actually transform any part of his body into what he needs. So seeing him been able to turn his hands into a gun or turn his hands into whatever, I knew he could do that. What I didn't know is that he could, just by thinking, hack into people's bank accounts and set off nuclear bombs. Just, I didn't know he was plugged into every single system in the entire world. That I didn't know. And I don't know if that was always been that way or if that was made for just for this movie.
Anybody like that would control the world.
Right. And that, I agree with you on that. He was that's maybe a little too much power. I mean, him being able to change and have rockets and guns and stuff. Yeah, that's fine.
And he could easily take out everyone in the Justice League if he wanted to. Yeah.
I mean, had they made it to where like, hey, I have to plug into the system and then I can control it, that's one thing. But just to be able to stand on the street corner and go, okay, now you're ATM, now you're rich. Yeah.
Well, what I thought could have neutralized that to some extent would be like, okay, they can't explore it in this movie because there's too much going on. But in his solo film, for instance, when he hacks into that bank account, like that money had to come from somewhere. So like there could be consequences for these things that kind of put some of his powers in check. So then you get into this like emotional, moral, spiritual conundrum that could have been explored. Like, well, I've got these abilities, but what is the right way to use them? And I think that could be cool because, that money just can't be transferred without it triggering something. Like, you can't just control the world that way. I mean, what's he going to do when 20 tanks come for him, or, Superman comes for him, or like there could be.
Well, he knows where all the kryptonites is in the world. All he has to do is hack that. It's like, okay, well, then ship that here, ship that there. I'm going to fly over here because I got all the jets inside me. And now I've got all the kryptonite. Okay, let's see. We'll play with a little bit of tech. This guy and this guy and this guy has been working on how to slow things down. So we'll build this, and now I can slow the Flash down. Amazonians are allergic to shrimp, so I'll break out some shrimp and... or whatever her weakness is. He has every bit of knowledge immediately in his head, so he can find anything he wants and make it happen.
They could give him like a love interest who, like, if they see him doing that, like he becomes a monster to them. And so, okay, he could choose this path, but it's going to cost him love. So, like there's some other way they could keep him.
Well, I mean, there's a story that can be told there, but it's hard for me to believe that this basically, I mean, teenage kid or 20, 21-year-old all of a sudden has the power of the everything and is like, all right, I'll help you guys out. And, someone like him, I don't know if he'd be mature enough to make that step. Otherwise, if it were me as an 18-year-old, I'd be across the world doing whatever, trying to figure out how to get skin back on me. Do certain parts of my body still work?
If Wonder Woman came to recruit you, would you be across the world? Because I was thinking, okay, if he's 16, 19, whatever, and Wonder Woman comes to recruit you, he's thinking girls, girls, girls. So he's going with her.
Maybe, but how much of him is left to actually have those feelings?
Yeah, probably thinks like, who would love me, that kind of thing. Yeah, so there is a ton they could have explored with this character. And yeah, maybe he was a little overpowered. Why need Superman?
I'm not saying he was a bad character. I thought the character was great. I thought the actor did the part very well. Unfortunately, that's the only time you'll ever see him.
Yeah, my only gripe was they made him walk with a little too much exaggerated swagger, because there were a couple times where I was kind of shaking my head a little bit, like, okay, I know he's like a machine, but it came off as a little bit of overacting. But that's not necessarily on him. That would be on the director. Or maybe they wanted it to look mechanical. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind, he had just gotten that body, too, so he's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I remember seeing the theatrical cut and thinking, I don't know, not resonating with the character. But then when I saw the extended cut, I did. So that was cool.
Yeah. So that definitely helped the movie for all of us.
Yeah. Now, Aquaman, he was interesting. I did not really understand why he picked Bruce Wayne up and confronted him like that. And then Bruce Wayne just hands him some money. It's kind of funny, but like I don't really understand why that scene resolved the way it did. I mean, maybe it's just like he's not afraid of me, so I guess I'll talk to him now. But
I took it as Arthur didn't want to be known. He just wants to do his thing and be left alone. I come in, I help these people, I leave. That's it. I don't need anything. I don't need recognition. I don't need to work with somebody. I don't want anybody to know who I am. And that's how I took it. He was looking more like he was just annoyed that somebody was coming in here and snooping around in my business. Because he was always kind of standoffish the entire film anyway. He was just kind of his own. He just did his own thing.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if we would have seen the origin story first of him to, find out where he is. That's the problem with Aquaman is we've never had an origin story, at least not live action or, maybe they've done some stuff with recent cartoons or something like that, but nothing big. He's never had a TV show like The Flash.
I always thought he was boring because he didn't do anything on Super Friends either, but like surf on dolphins.
Yeah, ride a seahorse.
He wrote that was it. Like he didn't do.
How did the seahorse get that big?
I do like this iteration of Aquaman. I mean, this is the best Aquaman on screen that I've seen.
Oh,
this is the only Aquaman on screen I've ever seen.
I mean, Reacher played Aquaman like 2 or 3 times on Smallville.
Oh, okay. Why was Aquaman really in the middle of a farm?
Yeah. He was there.
What? Was he hanging out in the lakes or something, trying to help him catch bass?
He was
talking to fish.
Which a lot of lakes.
That line was cut from the Snyder Cut. Do you talk to fish? You remember? So there's a lot less jokes in the Snyder.
There's a better joke in Peacemaker, but we won't go into that one here.
So I thought it was cool that Batman was heading up this team. This is not what you would see Batman do in the comics, probably. I don't know who headed up Justice League in the comics, but you guys mentioned before Batman was kind of the outsider of the Justice League. He'd work with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the more modern groups, he's not truly in the Justice League. He just shows up whenever things get a little out of hand, or if anything is happening in Gotham that they show up, he'll help.
Yeah.
But I think I remember seeing like the original cartoon where they group together and, they have like a satellite station that, their main base. And Bruce is like, oh, I'm not a part of this group. I'm just funding it. I'll be around if you need me. Yeah. So yeah, he's, this is kind of a complete 360 of what, or 180 of what this, or what, kind of the cartoon has been showing recently.
And they kind of had to go in this direction after BVS because they make him basically like a New Testament Paul, where he, was out to persecute, per se, Superman. And then he basically converts. And now he is following Superman's kind of mission and trying to right some wrongs there.
Yeah, so, he actually says it a couple times in the movie where
that he has faith.
Yeah, and that I do it before him, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. The only thing, he does say like, for once I'm operating strictly on faith, not reason. He says that to Alfred, and the only thing that bothers me about that is that seems like a whole blind faith thing, and I don't think that's how early Christianity was. It did involve reason, but I like what they were going for overall. And this idea of trying to raise Superman from the dead because you now believe in Superman, that is even more interesting when you realize that Batman has had these visions of this apocalyptic future where Superman is going to kill him and like the world is ended. So he's seen that possible future. He's had that vision from Barry, and even Cyborg is going to see the exact same thing when he tries to access the mother box. And yet they decide to have faith and raise Superman anyways. I don't know. That just adds some weight to what they're doing. And I don't know that the movie really tied those things together. Like, oh, we've seen this premonition of this awful thing, but we're gonna do this anyways. It never has them have a conversation about, they have a conversation about whether or not it's a good idea, but they never voice like, we saw the end of the world and Superman turn into a dark messiah. I thought that could have been explored a little more, but if it's going on in their heads, it does bring out something really interesting in the film. Like, how do you do something like that when there is this possibility that it ends terrible?
Well, it's either you do that or you do nothing and the world ends anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they decided on, was the fact that we can't do this without Superman. So, I think that's the way they went with it. But as you mentioned, you were surprised they didn't talk about that more. Maybe they were supposed to, and Joss just didn't go that direction. So he didn't. I don't know when Zack Snyder left and Joss Whedon came in during the shooting of Justice League. Maybe Zack was planning on shooting that scene a little bit later and them discussing what they've seen and, why are we all seeing this? Or, is this a good idea for this? Maybe that was a later discussion and, Joss decided to take it a different direction, and, it could have been a very cool and interesting scene trying to figure out, what's worse.
Yeah, it was a very troubled production because Zack Snyder's daughter did commit suicide during the making of this movie. So that was pretty sad. I mean, I don't know the details of that, but man, that would be really hard to deal with when you're already dealing with a difficult job, and BVS wasn't received that well. Like I really felt for him when he had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, wait, when we were talking about showing that future that they all had, they did show that.
Yeah, they showed it, but like the characters never talked about it.
Well, okay, never mind. Somehow I missed that part of it. I thought you were saying,
threw me out there.
Like, oh, wait. They did.
Yeah.
They did show it,
I wanted to know, like,
at all.
What is going on in Batman's head that he is so confident and has this faith despite the premonition. Like, there was no battle that took place in there, like, oh, we can stop this future, or oh yeah, this might happen. Like there was nothing there like that. He's seen it and he doesn't give it any weight, and he just blows right through it and raises Superman. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to see a little bit of tension or something. I mean, that could have been interesting.
Yeah, and like you said, there was at least two people who saw that vision. You mentioned the Flash, but that's the Flash
Wonder
from
Woman.
The future, so he wouldn't have seen that yet.
Wonder Woman,
Cyborg and Batman.
Yeah,
Cyborg and Batman.
Yeah.
Well, who was having the vision of like Wonder Woman laying there and dead with the pennies on her eyes? Who's that? Whose vision was that? Was that Batman's?
No, that was Cyborg's.
Okay. He's holding. That's right. He was holding the box at that time, so he's seeing all this stuff.
But whatever we saw at the end of the Snyder Cut, where Batman, Mara, and Joker and some other people are out in this apocalyptic future, I believe Mara mentions that Aquaman was killed by Superman in that timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if the events here raising Superman caused that timeline, and now they have to find a way to steer off of it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was just a dream that Bruce was having.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an actual timeline. It was just a dream, because he keeps having these dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just a dream that he had, because he woke up and then Martian Manhunter shows up.
But why does it come out of the box when Cyborg accesses it? So it's like something that exists outside of Batman's head.
I think it's just giving them a warning of a possible future. If you kind of, because the motherboard, as well as it seems like maybe
the mother box,
Flash and mother box. Sorry, the mother box. It seems to be these all super powerful computer type, maybe cyborg, AI, not sure exactly, futuristic boxes things. So they have all the information. So when Cyborg touches it, that makes sense there. Why Batman is having these, I don't know if I caught what did it, unless it was Barry coming back from the future. Oh, this is getting complicated.
I know.
To warn him, and him opening up that wormhole brought visions of that possible future to him.
Well, yeah,
Now,
he
again,
must know because Flash showed up. He said Lois is the key, so he must also know what's in the vision. So
Didn't
there's
Batman
three of
have
them.
these visions in Batman versus Superman though before we even saw the Flash?
Yeah, but it's the Flash that shows up, says Lois is the key, and he's trying to tell him how to prevent that future. So there's got to be three of them that have seen it: Cyborg, Flash, and Batman.
well, remember the Flash came from the future, so
Yeah.
the current Flash would not have seen that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
it gets,
yeah.
it
Time
gets a little
travel.
tricky
Where
at the
are
end
we?
there.
yeah. It's an interesting thing, and I'll tell you what, man. I know this was probably what they were going to do in Justice League 2, and the only other thing I know about Justice League 2 is somehow Zack Snyder was going to bring in a connection to an image from Batman v Superman, where Superman died in front of, there's 3 crosses in the background. So he was going to do something with all this, and I kind of wonder if that apocalyptic future was supposed to kind of be like Armageddon or some kind of tie to the Book of Revelation, like a symbolic representation of it. I wanted to see that because I just thought that world was cool, and Batman looks cool. Like, I've never seen anything like it. So it is a real bummer that we're not going to get that movie, because whether or not I thought this was a great movie, I wanted Justice League 2.
Yeah, all they need to do is just take the Justice League cartoon and start it from the end of the Snyder Cut,
Oh, that
and
would
then
be
just
cool.
tell the story from there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it sounds like it was going to be a pretty deep and dark story. And obviously, he didn't get to shoot everything that he wanted to. And we're confused and trying to figure this out, where in reality, I don't think we were supposed to figure everything out right now, because he had more story to tell that we have no idea where it was going. So all we can do is kind of speculate. He's dropped some hints, or, what he kind of wanted to do, but it's not going to explain everything.
Yeah.
So if he would just take that story and give it to DC Cartoons to say, you know what, let's run a new, I mean, heck, you can find people who sound like Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot and the other people, make them look similar. It doesn't have to be exact, but, make Batman jacked and a little bit older, and, have Superman walking like Henry Cavill does, and, copy their outfits perfectly and just let the story continue. You started off with a really cool story. I think they rushed Justice League. I've told you plenty of times how I feel about that, but it's an interesting story that would have been really good if it were a 10-part miniseries.
Yeah.
From Superman all the way through Justice League.
TV show.
Yeah, if they could really tell that story deep. So run with it with the cartoons. Make it look amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned that it looked unfinished. I thought the physics with the CGI were a step backwards in both the theatrical cut and the Snyder cut. They seemed to be a step backwards after, like, even from what we saw in Batman v Superman. Like the Doomsday fight I mentioned, it just kind of doesn't look that real.
Yep.
And Man of Steel had Man of Steel seemed to have better CGI almost than in better physics than this movie. And I realized my problem isn't CGI, it is the way they move. And that's what takes me out of the film. So at the halfway point of this movie, when there's the first big CGI fight against Steppenwolf, the rock band, I felt like I kind of took a step out of the film because it turns into like an unfinished cartoon. It looks like unfinished CGI. So I almost think if this production wasn't so troubled, we would have had something that looked a little bit better. But I still have some trouble with just the way Zack Snyder directs that CGI, because the movement does not look like a human being. So you've got a human actor standing there, and all of a sudden it moves in some kind of way that doesn't reflect physics at all. And then that actor is back. And there's too much close-ups on the people to where, like, I really lose track of the surroundings. And I think with just a little bit of change there, that could really improve these movies, because I thought I zoned out for a little bit during the action, and that shouldn't happen. And I thought, maybe I wouldn't recommend this movie, but then like the characters start talking again, I get drawn back into it. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more realism so that when somebody gets punched, I feel it.
Well, one thing you got to keep in mind with this, with the special effects probably not being as great as they could have been, is that Snyder had to come back and reshoot a lot of scenes. So he had to bring in the actors again. He had to have a crew with him. They had to score it. They had to put in the special effects. And Warner Brothers only gave him $70 million to do that. And if you think how much does a movie like this cost to make, 70 million is not a lot of money to be able to cover a budget like that. So something is going to have to give a little bit. And I think that's maybe why special effects could have probably been better. They had to cut some shortcuts here and there. And I think that's what paid the price. Had this been the theatrical release and he didn't have to reshoot everything, I think they would have been a lot better.
But the other reason too, and I've said this hundreds of times comparing DCU to MCU, is that I just think they were scared that, the Avengers were like on their third movie and just killing it in the box office. And it's like, we need our Avengers. We need it now. And just skip everything, and everything was rushed. Batman v Superman had 3 different comic book stories shoved into a 2.5-hour movie that eventually became a 4-hour movie that still wasn't good enough. Or maybe 3.5 or whatever it was. It was just still too much going on. They were just, we got to tell this whole story. We got to make this happen now. I mean, truthfully, personally, I would say the whole Superman dying thing shouldn't happen until Justice League 2 minimum. This is the forming of the Justice League, and Superman should be the leader. And, so not... And nothing against Batman. Again, they told the story decently, but this epic of a tale should be a little bit further down the line. It shouldn't have happened right now, but they were just like, we need it. We need it. This is the most popular story. Go.
They could have taken this Justice League movie and actually split it into 2 and have the first part be about getting the Justice League together, and then Superman dying during that one. And then, like you said, Justice League Part 2, we resurrect him and we fight the bad guys. But the first one is establishing, and then something goes wrong and Batman and Superman fight.
Well, I think that's how you can set up, maybe the ending of Justice League is how you set up Batman and Superman starting to, it's very similar to, Avengers going into Civil War.
Right, yeah.
Or Avengers 2, Civil War, and then they all come back together in Endgame. That formula works. And you know what? That's what every long-term storytelling, everyone runs through that at some point, where it's like, you got a strong group, a couple of them are going to get mad at each other, and then they split and they come back together and they work together as a team, and blah, blah. That's the story as old as time. No one's going to complain if you kind of go with the same thing. So it's like, just tell the story you want to tell. The money will come. People want a good, strong, modern Superman story. They gave us the Return of Superman. The actor was great. The rest of the movie was horrible. We finally got this one. Give us a good long storytelling. That's what sounds like they're doing now. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're afraid that they would be compared. You're too much like the MCU now because you're doing the same thing they did. Like, we got to be different too. I don't know. But whatever it was, whoever made the decisions really dropped the ball.
Would
Hopefully
somebody,
they've
for
learned
the
it's
love
gotta be
of God,
quality.
hire Kevin Smith?
No kidding.
He doesn't need to direct him. I'm not saying
Just let
use
him write
him as
it.
dialogue, but just have him tell the stories.
Mm-hmm.
He knows everything about comics. I mean, Mallrats is basically a comic book movie about comics.
Well, he has a show called Comic Book Men.
Yeah. He owns a multiple comic book store. He knows these characters and he's going to give you an amazing story. Let him run with it. But nobody does. It's like, do you really think he's going to make jokes from Clerks in a Superman movie?
No, he would take that so seriously.
Yes. That's his childhood. That's his life. He is the comic book fan. That's the person who should be writing this. And you know he can tell stories. And
You're
like
smart
you
enough to
said,
get
he's
rid of the
going to take it
mechanical
serious.
spider.
Oh yeah, he did a great job. He said, no large mechanical spiders.
Right.
Kevin Smith did a great job with the Masters of the Universe on Netflix. Revelation.
Oh yeah, he did do that.
Revolution.
Yeah, I watched a couple
And
of
they're
those.
really, really good. It's great storytelling. It really is. So, yeah, I'm up for that.
What'd you guys think of Superman's resurrection here?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Happy to see him, or confused about the direction they took?
I just don't like how nobody has a secret identity anymore in these movies. Like, everyone now knows that Superman is Clark Kent. There's the whole army and the police are there. They know who he is now. Because Batman's sitting there with police around going, Clark! Clark, don't.
Yeah,
and then Lois shows up and Clark, and it's like, so.
Yeah, where's the tabloid the next day?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Batman's really the only one who has his identity is still hidden because apparently nobody can look at Wonder Woman and realize that she's Diana. The people that she worked with.
I'm trying to remember because it has been a little bit since I watched this. Did they explain why he doesn't remember anything? I mean, I understand that Lois kind of snaps him out of it, but are we just, and I don't have a problem with it, but are we just to assume that because he's been brought back to life, he's like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? I'm
kind of
learning
like
everything back. And, okay.
That's how I took it. They don't have an explanation. It's just he showed up and he was kind of eyeballing everybody.
Well, and
if you think about it, he doesn't know Cyborg. Yeah, he doesn't know Cyborg. He doesn't know Flash. He recognizes Wonder Woman, but barely. And then Cyborg, his defenses go off, and next thing you know, he's shooting a cannon at me. So, Superman goes into action.
Yeah, I didn't really
recognize
blame
Batman,
him.
and he was really upset to see Batman because he remembers the last thing he remembers is fighting Batman, and so
maybe it's just him slowly getting his memory back. I'm okay with that, I guess.
I guess it makes sense because if you get a concussion sometimes, and I know a number of people who have had a near-death accident and they don't remember. I got a buddy who had a skiing accident recently, almost killed him, and he doesn't remember the accident itself. He remembers going airborne, and then memory loss is a pretty common thing. So this does make sense here. I liked it better in the Snyder cut. I was kind of rolling my eyes in the theatrical cut, but it made more sense why they were fighting in the Snyder cut. And I didn't like it at first, but now that I think about it, I kind of wondered if when they brought Superman back, we're saying it's been confirmed he's supposed to be kind of a Jesus figure. It's not a perfect analogy, but here when he's got his laser eyes, I was trying to figure out when he's trying to fry the members of the Justice League, how does this fit in? And I did kind of wonder if this is supposed to be kind of a throwback to how Jesus, when he comes back, he's supposed to be like this divine warrior, like a judge, and he's going to destroy evil, right? It's not going to be puppy dogs and sunshine for evil, right? So I kind of wondered if it was maybe that the end times depiction of Superman here. I don't know.
That could be.
And that's kind of what we see in those visions, except Superman's actually turned evil in the premonitions. But
right. Yeah, I don't think Jesus ever did that.
No.
I will say about the fight that it's my favorite part of the entire movie is when the Flash finally gets into the fight and he's running around and everyone's standing there, and then he gets the side eye from Superman. I was like,
And he's like,
that's cool.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh crap, and his face. I mean, that's just genuine terror. Like, what? It's just, oh, it was so good. That part was in both versions was just really cool. He's trying to figure out who this guy is. He fights people by just going, and he did that, and it pushed him back, and just seeing that the way they did the physics and everything in that looked really cool.
Yeah.
I know the CGI was pretty rough throughout the movie, but when you're in the Speed Force or the going in slow motion like that, the way they did all that looked really, really good. I will give him props on that.
Yeah.
30-second scene.
Yeah, Batman's faith gets tested a little bit here too, because Superman almost kills him. But I liked when Superman shows up later, he and Alfred are talking, Batman and Alfred, and Batman again says something about faith, because Alfred says, well, how do you know he's even going to show up to fight Steppenwolf? And Batman says, it's called faith, Alfred. And then when Superman actually shows up, he's got that black suit, which is a throwback to the 90s comic, The Death and Return of Superman. He wore this black suit. He had long hair, but I thought that black suit looked pretty cool. So
yeah, I didn't have a problem with it.
Nice Easter egg. I don't have a lot to say about this end battle. Do you guys?
It was CGI heavy. I'm trying to remember. There were a lot of differences from the Snyder cut and the Whedon cut, right?
Well, Barry doesn't have to go back in time and all that stuff in the Snyder cut, or in the original.
Does he get shot in the leg? He doesn't?
Something like that. Yeah, and he didn't.
He
have
has to like push. He was pushing a family in a car away.
Yeah.
At one point in the original.
Everybody has more to do in the Snyder Cut, I feel like. And like you said earlier, Batman is the only one who doesn't have powers here. But, I mean, he's got his toys and stuff. The way they utilize him, I never feel like he's really a human. I feel like he's almost superhuman. Mm-hmm. So they maximized his capabilities or hid his weaknesses. So that was well done.
Yeah, I thought Batman was... The more I watched it, the more I liked the Affleck Batman.
I do too.
Oh, he's my favorite.
It was fun.
I'll say that right now. I'm not a big fan of the movies, but I'm a big fan of the way he played Bruce Wayne, Batman. He was the perfect mix. He was the closest. I think, is what Michael Keaton was going for. That's why Michael Keaton was so good, was because he could play both of those parts pretty well. But the way Batman was portrayed in this was so much better than the stiff Michael Keaton version. So this one was so much better. But yeah, I thought Ben Affleck did great.
I wish they would have kept that original scene from the theatrical cut in this one, though, because it opens with Batman on the rooftops fighting. And it was a cool scene. And I wish they would have kept it in this one, because it was just really neat to see Affleck, being Batman, in Gotham. But oh well.
He didn't look like he wanted to be there in Dawn of Justice, but somehow, maybe it's different takes they used. Like, I did not get that vibe from the Snyder Cut.
Well, he was one of the biggest supporters of getting a Snyder's Cut out there. Like, he really voiced him
and Gal Gadot.
Yeah, they were all like
pushing that.
We need to do this. So he was all for it. So I don't know why he would be unhappy to be there. He's getting paid.
Yeah, he didn't like the suit. It was incredibly uncomfortable. So that could be
sure. I mean, probably a lot of those suits are, because maybe Henry Cavill, but everyone knows Ben Affleck is not built like that. So there is probably 20 pounds of foam and something to make him look jacked. He was big. I'm not saying
Ben Affleck for this movie. Yeah,
Ben Affleck. He worked out, but he was not. I mean, he had biceps that looked like Superman. Basically, he looked like Henry Cavill, and he was not built like Henry Cavill. And then, of course, I would assume the Flash's suit was a pain, because I don't think that was CGI. That was, a full-on suit. But, they had, I know he wasn't built like that. So, he's carrying around, I'm sure, any kind of suit is probably uncomfortable.
He had to
Except
wear
for-
an electric loincloth.
Right?
Well, guys, if you want to go on a little spiritual themed scavenger hunt, we put together the codex that you can download in the description. It's like a treasure map that points out all the spiritual Easter eggs in the movie, and you can watch the film and hunt for them. So it also has some discussion questions for groups. Check that out in the video description, and we'll be back soon with more movies.